When he was 35 years old, the king of cocaine was the son of a poor Colombian farmer, but by that time he had risen to become one of the world's wealthiest individuals. Despite his humble beginnings, Pablo Escobar rose to become the leader of the Medellin cartel, which was responsible for 80% of the worldwide cocaine market at the time of his death in 1993. This video will talk about 10 things Netflix didn't tell you about Pablo Escobar. Let's get started. According to estimates, El Patron took in over $420 million in money per week, making him one of the wealthiest drug lords. Because of the nature of drug money, it is impossible to determine the exact amount of Escobar's wealth. However, estimations range as high as $30 billion. Pablo Escobar was a man who commanded respect and admiration among his supporters while simultaneously striking fear and outrage in the hearts of his adversaries. Whether you like or dislike him, he certainly made his mark on Colombia and the United States. But how much do you really know about the most prosperous drug lord in history? Here are some of the more mind-boggling facts you may not already know about the most successful drug lord in history. Number 10. From rags to riches. When he began manufacturing the big box, Mr. Escobar may have acquired a taste for the finer things in life, but his upbringing was anything but luxurious. When Pablo Escobar was born, the country of Colombia was in the midst of a civil war known as La Violencia, and you don't have to be fluent in Spanish to understand what that means. A 10-year struggle between conservatives and liberals resulted in the deaths of 200,000 people, with many survivors being forced into poverty, further complicating matters. Pablo Escobar was the third of 7 children in his family, which meant that there were a lot of mouths to feed but not a lot of food to provide them all. His brother Robert Escobar recalled that his brother was a thinker and the quiet child of the family. One of Pablo's early money-making schemes involved robbing tombstones, scratching off the names of those who had died, and reselling them. Turns out that there were no big customers who returned again and again to Pablo's new line of business. The vast majority of them were from the United States and were willing to pay a premium for their addicting products. Number 9. A major supplier. In Colombia, the demand for cocaine outstripped the need for coffee. The Medellin cartel was smuggling up to 15 tons of cocaine into the United States every day. Escobar would bribe inspectors and border guards to look the other way unless they made the incorrect decision. When confronted with Pablo Escobar's famous phrase "plata o plomo," which roughly translates as "take my silver or take my lead," it's safe to say that anyone who stood in the way of Escobar's cocaine supply line was quickly dispatched. Experts estimate that 80% of the cocaine consumed in the United States was supplied by Escobar's cartel, which operated a network of 142 planes, 20 helicopters, 32 yachts, and 141 planes. Number 8. Pilot paydays. Homes and office buildings ranked 8th in terms of pilot payoffs. Of course, even with the majority of the world's attention diverted, Escobar required people willing to fly his product to the United States and risk being apprehended. The man himself accompanied his first few deliveries as far as Panama. Still, he soon gathered a few trusted pilots who would fly to the United States on his behalf. Their planes would have their tires filled with cocaine, then transported. Number 7. Forbes' finest. After building his lucrative empire, Mr. Escobar began mixing with some prestigious companies and even attempted to become a legitimate politician. At one point in 1987, when his net worth was estimated to be over $2 billion, he appeared on the Forbes richest list for the first time, ranking among the world's 100 wealthiest people for the first time in the world's history. They have been defined as a husky 5'6" male generally dressed in rugby shirts, chino pants, and sneakers by Forbes. They have also been called a prime example of Colombian pesa, an aggressive, unsentimental rural hustler. Even after receiving 3 federal indictments in the United States, Escobar maintained his position on the Forbes rich list for 7 years in a row. In fact, Forbes predicted his demise in 1993, saying, "We suspect that as have his fellow drug lords, the Ocho brothers who are currently languishing in prison, Escobar will be brought to justice." If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and hit that subscribe button. Number 6. A home for hippos. The Hacienda Nápoles, a 5,000-acre estate where Escobar lived, was home to a zoo with various exotic animals, including antelope, ostriches, elephants, giraffes, and hippos. When Escobar was arrested, many of the animals were relocated, but 24 hippos escaped and began breeding further down the Riviera, which is now home to a group of wild hippopotami. Number 5. An expensive rap problem. According to reports, Pablo Escobar, the famed drug lord, had so much extra cash that he lost $1 billion a year to rats. These rodents, who appeared to have an opulent palate, gorged themselves on Escobar's cash stash. Escobar's immense fortune was so great that he couldn't keep up with the expenses. Number 4. Essential office supplies. Because he couldn't just stroll into a bank and deposit all of his filthy cash, he'd roll up to $100 bills and store them in his warehouse, where the rats would enjoy the tasty taste of his cold hard cash. Many people are perplexed as to why he never considered purchasing a faithful cat or two to help manage the rat problem. If that wasn't enough, it's also been stated that his men would spend more than $250,000 every month on rubber bands to bind the wrapped bundles of money. Number 3. Burning bucks to stay warm. When Juan Pablo Escobar, Escobar's son, age 38, spoke with Don Juan magazine in 2009, he recounted it was like being on the run with the king of cocaine. Since then, Juan Pablo has changed his identity to Sebastian Mariquin, and the interview has been deleted. According to Mariquin, Escobar's daughter Manuela suffered from hypothermia while the family was hiding in a hillside hideout in the Medellin highlands. Escobar planned to burn $2 million worth of crisp banknotes to keep her warm during the winter. Number 2. Personalized prison. The Colombian government agreed to have him imprisoned. Still, he chose to do it in a beautiful prison he built and christened La Catedral. Escobar was sentenced to prison in 1991, where he was housed in prison he built himself and dubbed La Catedral. According to his deal with the Colombian government, Escobar was given the authority to choose who would be imprisoned beside him and labor in prison. Furthermore, he could continue to operate his cartel company and entertain visitors. He created La Catedral as an addition to his family's compound, which included a soccer field, barbecue pit, and patios. It was also close to another mix he built for his family. Furthermore, Colombian authorities were not permitted to come within 3 miles of his incarceration. Number 1. Buried treasure. It goes without saying that Pablo's net worth was enormous. It was projected to be worth around $30 billion, but the truth is that no one knows for sure how much he actually made. A significant amount of the money he made is still unaccounted for, with the idea estimating that as much as $1.3 billion could be buried somewhere on Colombian soil. It has already been revealed that Escobar and his associates buried more than $100 million worth of weapons, jewelry, and plain old cash, all of which have been discovered by the country's administration. They are even employing sonar and other cutting-edge excavating gear to uncover the remainder of his money. So, how did you really portray Pablo Escobar in real life? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and hit that subscribe button before going. Thanks for watching. See you next time.